Hello, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Jack Blade, and today we are playing some Satisfactory, or technically we're playing Satisfactory Modeler. We are looking, or continuing our look into what you need to produce to finish the game, and last time we looked at the space elevator, raw processing and elevator parts processing, and walked through a little bit about what you need to think about, what were the numbers, and once again, I'm saying that the numbers here are based on the alternate recipes that I've picked. There can be vastly different. They can be literally the other way around. What I've focused on is using a lot of copper, steel, and reducing the use of the more rare resources as much as possible. So we will start looking at power generation, and that means we are getting into this. And if this is a video that you very much like, make sure to hit the like, subscribe button, all the YouTube stuff, help out with the engagement, help out with the growth of the channel, and make sure that you hang out in the streams or join the Discord. They are in the description. Now, let's get into this. Okay, we are now into the power generation. And here's the thing. I want to preface this with what I have set up is not necessarily 100% effective. And it is all about, finishing the game, right? So to finish the game, you need to make all the space elevator parts, right? But there is a secondary game, which is build all the different power types that you can build. And that is what I have essentially done here. So if we go into this and look at what we have here, and once again, this is a timeline kind of thing. So when you start the game, you get in, you build your first power setup. What do I recommend you build? What are the numbers? We are looking at phase 1, where we're looking at 60 biomass burners, and you use the solid biofuel. You use this solid biofuel and you make 480 per minute. And here's the thing. You're not going to be using all of this power. Like if we go in here, boom, and we look at the average net power, you're gonna have 3,600 megawatts available. And that is not for being used. You don't build a factory that uses 3,600 megawatts. The entire point is to reduce or rather lengthen the amount of time before you have to go out and gather new stuff to put into your biomass burner. That is essentially the goal. So if you have a factory, the way that this works, the solid biofuel, this little thingy here, you burn 4 of these per minute per biomass burner if you're using it at full capacity. So if we look at this full capacity, or rather if I hover over this, it doesn't actually show it, but the base power output from one of these, if I remember correctly, is 40 megawatts? 30? 30, I think. Yeah, 30. That's the correct one, because the fully overclocked one is 75. So we are doubling that, so each of them are worth 60 megawatts, right? But, so that means that it will burn 8 per minute. But if you have 60 of them and have 3,600 megawatts, but your factory is only using half of that, it's using 1,800. That means that the burn rate for your fuel generators are going down by 50% because you're only using half of their capacity. Which means that instead of a stack of solid biofuel, which is 200, instead of that lasting for 30 minutes or whatever, I think it's 50 minutes it would be 25 minutes for a 200% clock speed one. By doing this, you double the time before you need to recharge it, and you put that at 50 minutes, right? And if you have half of that, if you say that you go down to 1,000 to 900 megawatts, then suddenly you have 2 hours, 3 hours before you need to put in one more stack of these. So that if you have a setup, if we go out here and we go over and check our raw processing for phase 1, right? If you have a setup like this, where you can burn some mycelia, you can burn some wood, and you need one of these to make 300, right? So for that to be equivalent to actually burn all of this, you need 2.5 of these. The thing is, this doesn't really work. You're gonna need 2 of these. You need to split this out because your fastest belt at that point is probably gonna be like 120. You're not gonna be able to use that. So you would probably need like 2 of these. You would probably go like so and limit this to another, boom, we would go solid biofuel like this and have like not 2.5. Instead of that, you would go down to like, what would that be? 120. If we just make this, boom, and say that you can only make 60, that's 120, right? And then we tell this one you can also only make 60. This is just to show you guys what I mean. 60, you limit it to the belt, right? So if you want to have the full like capacity of 1 of these, you would then have to have a third one like so, that you put at 0.2 there, and then that would be to a boop solid biofuel like that, and that would be making 30, right? This would be like your setup. So you would then take a merger like so. Let's clear connections. 60, 60, 30, and now we have achieved the same 150. So you would need to set it up like this, like to be real. You would need 0.4, then 0.4, and then 0.2. Like, that's because of how the belts are limiting you. Same thing over here, right? You need to like split this up. This is essential just to show like what you want to produce in the end would be if you have 1 of these. And if we change this and go boom there, like this is the numbers that you want to produce from the wood. This is the numbers that you want to produce from the mycelia, and this is the numbers you want to produce from the leaves. Because these are very easy to get a lot of, so that's why. But essentially, you can do this, and it's very simple to set up. And I do believe you can do this very, very quickly. Now, then let's go and check on what happens in phase 2. Phase 2 is a little bit weird because you're not actually producing anything to burn. You are just gathering something to burn, or collecting something to burn. So we still have the first phase 1 setup, right? So we still have this. So if we're looking at the power now, it's 8,400. 7,000 of that is what you're producing or have the capacity for. 3,600 here, and 2,800 here. I think that's the number. 3,400, yeah. Plus 3,600, that would be the number. It is way too Sunday for me today to be able to actually think and do math in my head like that. So yeah, we have this setup, right? Where instead of making stuff to burn, you are just collecting coal and water, and you are burning this. There are millions of setups for coal on the platform. The best way that I can say here is make them in 2 sets of 8, overclock them 200%, and then you put in, you split it up, right? So the coal, you need to, at this point in phase 2, you have access to like Mark 2 belts, right? Or I think you might have Mark 3 belts at this point. Either way, you put in 240 into one set, and you put in 240 into the other, and then you take and you split up, and you like overclock your water intake as well. 3 of the water collector, water extractors, that's the name. And then you put 1 input on one end of your pipe manifold, 1 input on the other, and 1 input in the absolute middle, and that's going to evenly spread throughout the pipes and work perfectly. And that's a very, very simple way to set it up. If I have a picture, I will put one up on the screen so you can see what it looks like. If you then look at the production over here, we can go into phase 2. You can see that it's still under the same thing we're producing because we don't need to produce anything. We just need to put in some coal and water. Something that I want to bring up though is that at this point, you should have at least a couple of the alien power augmenters. They are very easy to get very early on in the game by collecting stuff from the crash sites, by collecting stuff from tamed doggos, like lizard doggos. And I have a video on that. You should go check that out. It's incredibly powerful to use doggos in the early game. And then, like, having 2 of these set up, unlock them in the MAM in the alien technology tree, and set up 2 alien power augmenters. Not only do they provide 500 megawatts each, there's also a network-wide buff of 10% per alien power augmenters. So you have a 20% buff, if you can see here on the left side, that you will be adding to the whole thing. So you will be adding 1,400 megawatts for free. And the intention of that is like twofold. One, this will probably completely nullify your solid biofuel being used. This is now only acting as a backup in case you are nearing the maximum power utilization available. So that's also something to keep in mind. And then we use mostly coal, and like I said, nothing to produce. So let's move on straight to phase 3. So yeah, let's look at this. This is where you start getting complex. This is where we start looking at like time-consuming power generation setups. First of all, at this point, get 4 of these. They themselves will be providing 2,000 megawatts. They will also have your 40% bonus to your network, which is chef's kiss to have available. And that 40% bonus means that you probably don't need any power. Like if you build this, you build this until you start like messing around with like particle accelerators and really, really big like endgame factories, you probably don't need a lot of power, like to build more power. But yeah, this is the phase 3 power plant where we're using 100 fully overclocked turbo fuel generators, like fuel generators burning turbo fuel. This is great because the fuel production for turbo fuel, for the recipe that I've chosen, makes 18.75 fuel per minute, and they burn 18.75 fuel per minute. Which means that you can put down one generator and a refinery next to each other and make the turbo fuel and run it straight into the generator without having to mess around with trying to make big manifolds work for all of your power, for all of fuel generators. Because fuel generators, they tend to mess with the fluid saturation in your pipes when you're using manifolds. So you tend to get inefficiencies and small dips, and they are almost impossible to fix. So one of the ways that I've solved that is by using a 1-to-1 recipe, one refinery, one fuel generator, and then I build the next refinery and a fuel generator, and I hook them up, and that works. So the fuel before then that you turn into turbo fuel, that works fine. I'll see if I can get a picture up here. Give me a second and I will show you what I have in the world that looks like this. All right, so over here you can see exactly this setup where I've bunched up the processing from oil into heavy oil residue. I have bunched up the compacted coal production. I have bunched up the fuel production, but when it comes to actually making the turbo fuel or like burning it, what I have done is I have very clearly marked it with one refinery and one fuel generator. There is no manifold between the fuel generators. And that is what prevents me from having any problems with this. Let's look a bit closer at it. All right, so if we look at this, basically I get the fuel in here. It goes into the refinery. The compacted coal goes into the refinery. like perfectly, like 100% efficient. And then it goes all the way through here. And once again, make sure that you replace your pipes. Make sure that there's a gap between these, otherwise your pipes might be messing up. I have this in between in case of like slow startups or whatever it might be. Sometimes the internal buffers from the machines empty when you load a save. Like it doesn't happen all the time to all the machines, but when it happens, it can mess up your system. This prevents that. And then I have run that into the generator. A generator which is also running at 100% efficiency. And then I have literally just replicated this 100 times. And I've done that very simply with blueprints. So I put this up, and this is exactly the setup that I have put into the Satisfactory modeler as well for the phase 3 power. This has worked perfectly for me, and I think I make a little bit more coal power, but if you look at my power in the save here, we have a total production of 106,000 and a capacity of 108,000. I have so much power from the boost of 4 alien power augmenters that they are covering my entire need for power right now. My consumption and my power boost, like, they are close to each other. I'm going to pass that soon, but the power boost right now is covering my entire need for power in this world because of this setup, because the bigger your power generation is, the more valuable the alien power augmenter boost becomes. Now, let's head on back over to Satisfactory Modeler. What we're going to be looking at now is our production for phase 3. So let's look at this. This is quite simple, right? We need oil, about 1800 oil, that we then run into a refinery or set of refineries, 62 and a half to be honest, or to be precise, refineries that make turbo fuel. And I don't even think this is correct. No, this is an even simpler setup than what I made. Okay, so you still need about the same amount of like oil than what I've done. I've gone straight for heavy turbo fuel here, so I skipped the fuel production step. You can make more turbo fuel, you can make like whatever it is. The important bit for me is that you have like that all of your refineries can run at 100%, so that they produce 18.75, and then you can make a fully overclocked fuel generator use those 18.75 1-to-1. Very simple. And yeah, like this is essentially the simple setup that I have done. I'm just syncing all of this here. If you want to, you can use this to make rubber and plastic out of, or which is also an option, you can use this to make fabric. In the mycelia tree, you can unlock the fabric that you need for some alternate recipes and for some production. And then, of course, we're producing the same 480 solid biofuel. So that's phase 3. All right, we are getting into the stupid area of complexity now, where it's like you don't need this, but we're talking about completing the game, and this is completing the game, in my opinion, is not just sending all the space elevator parts, it's also building all the different types of power. Doesn't have to be like a maxed out, using all the resources in the world, the biggest factory you can, but no matter how you look at it, adding like the nuclear power to a world, to a factory, no matter how you look at it, will be your most complex project ever. Like, no matter what you've done up to this point in Satisfactory, you start messing around with nuclear power, it will be your most complex one. So if you are someone who likes rushing through your build and just like, yeah, I'm gonna go balls to the wall and I'm just gonna build this as fast as I can and just like smack things down, your nuclear power setup will suck. Like, it will not work. It will have inefficiencies that like causes meltdowns and like waste backup and everything. Either way, what we're looking at here is 20 nuclear power plants. I don't know why the water isn't like going up to what it should here. That should be just a straight 20. I don't know why it's being like funky about it, but either way, it might be that this one is not clocked correctly on the other end. But yeah, this power generation method also produces nuclear waste, uranium nuclear waste specifically, and we need to get rid of that. So we also upgrade our fuel generation, because that's going to be our primary, like the big, that's going to give us all of the power that you actually need for everything else, right? So if we look at this, you get 187,500 power from 300 fully overclocked rocket fuel power generators, like fuel generators. And you can, like, what I've also put in here is using the Mark II miner and like Mark IV belts, you can also upgrade your coal power setup to 32 plants, producing 4,800 power instead. Once again, with 4 alien power augmenters. There's only like 100 summer sloops in the world, so this is using about half of them to unlock everything and build these. Then you have 50 more that you can use for other stuff, either more power augmenters, or you can use them to like sloop certain materials production that you might really want to summer sloop to double the output of, specifically like sulfur and sand, stuff like the rare resources that there's a very small amount of in the world. And now, here's the thing with this. This one is a flex, completely unnecessary to actually have in your world. The fuel power upgrade you might need for like the complex stuff that happens in phase 4, or rather the massive amount of stuff you might need in phase 4. In terms of like the space elevator part production and everything. Either way, if we go to our raw processing for phase 4, you can see that I have basically looped the waste here. It goes over, it goes in, and then over here it goes into the phase 4 thingy here. And if we go down, you will also see here that this is not using the amount that I wanted to. And that, if I follow that to where I've actually put this in, I need to increase this to an 8. Boop boop. There. So now it should be using all of the... If I go back here, so just check that I fixed this in the file so I don't forget that. Yes, now it's 4,800 water. It's using perfectly 20 machines. There's no division of that. All right. Now, if we go in here again and check, when we look at what we're doing here, so all of the turbo fuel that we did before is in here. And we're also making our rocket fuel. And we do that by adding a small little iron processing setup that makes iron plates. And those iron plates go in and they make this nitric acid. Nitric acid is then used in combination in a blender with turbo fuel to make rocket fuel. And as you can see, you make a ton of rocket fuel. You make 3,125 rocket fuel. That is a metric crapload of rocket fuel to burn off for power. And here you also get a byproduct of compacted coal, which I am running back in here to this. I'm looping it. Not recommended. I mean, you're going to be building nuclear power if you're following this plan. This is the least of your problems, like balancing this out. Those 312 goes in and merge on this line with those 1,562.5, giving you the number that you need, 1,875, to make the rocket or turbo fuel in the first place. And by doing this, you need to produce less compacted coal, saving sulfur for other projects, which is important, especially in the endgame, because you have so little sulfur and you need a lot of it for certain things, like the sulfuric acid and stuff. Either way, this is then sent out, of course, and it goes in and it gets burnt in those 300 fuel generators. And then if we go down, we can see this is the setup to make your nuclear fuel rods. If you just look here, this is all of it. And okay, let me just go in here. So on this end, we are making steel we need to bring in water, not just from here. We are also I don't recommend doing this. Don't loop this. Like, I've set it up as a representation of not looping other things. I'm gonna explain that in a second. Either way, we bring in water, we bring in and make deuterium ingots, copper ingots, and we bring in uranium to be processed in blenders to make these encased uranium cells. They are not the power cell. That one is made over here in a manufacturer, together with encased industrial beam and electromagnetic rods. So you make I've chosen an alternate recipe for these electromagnetic control rods, and this is it's just the base output. Okay, so this just makes your electromagnetic control rod, and it will allow you to make a metric crapload of power if you're using this correctly. Like, if you supersize this is with 400 uranium, if I remember correctly. On the map, if I just check quickly, if I just bring this up so I don't lie to you guys, I would hate to do that. On the entire map, there's 2,100 uranium. So if you wanted to really max this out, you could like take this and multiply it by 5, making 20 of these per minute, unless you want also like summer sloop some stuff over here. For example, if you summer sloop this, giving you a higher output of these in the first place, you could technically get multiple that. So technically you could get 40 in the end here, unless you like multiply multiple different things, so that you can get even more. Like, you can multiply it twice. So you multiply it over here, and then you multiply it over here. That would ultimately give you 80 like uranium fuel rods, which would then be producing, what would that be? If I just check this quickly, or let's bring up a calculator, it would be 80, not even that. There, you would be making about 1 million megawatts based on that. However, that presents a problem later down the line if you do that, because you won't be able to get rid of all the waste, and you make a lot of waste when you're making uranium power. And here is how you get rid of it. So when the waste comes in this setup, this processing setup where you bring in your silica, you bring in your nitric acid, sulfuric acid, uranium waste, you get some water and some non-fissile uranium out, and then you blend that over here. You have some aluminium being made over here. And here's the thing where I'm talking about don't loop. This water going up here and going in here to be made into wet concrete. My recommendation is to keep things as simple as possible, is to do this instead. Don't make things more complicated than they have to be. Do this, and then sink that, and get that from another like source. Like, don't mess with this, because like the aluminium loop is one of the worst ones to like make work in the first place. So getting rid of this way is so much easier on your mental health. Just to be quite frank, this is a lot simpler on your mental health. Oh, I went out there. Phase 4. There. So okay, we continue here. We keep going in. You can see we make some more nitric acid over here, and then we keep going, and you keep going down the line. You make plutonium. I made alternate recipe choice here for instant plutonium cells using almost a little bit more than 3.5 particle accelerators to skip a lot of extra production steps to make it simpler. Like, there's less machine groups and less machine types and like different products you need to make. And then you bring this in, you make your heat sinks, you mix your heat sinks, control rods, steel beams, and encased plutonium cells, and you make 1.9 plutonium fuel rods. And here you can sink them. In phase 4, we sink them, we don't use them to make more power yet. That happens in phase 5, which we are looking at now. Alright, we are heading into stupid territory now. Like, you don't need to do any of this. We're heading in here. When you produce this amount of power, and with 4 alien power augmenters, not using the alien power matrix that will enhance these, not using that, you will have the ability to produce a little bit over 500,000 megawatts, which is a stupid amount, and you will have no problems at all with this, or like with your power, like ever again. You will be able to build however much you want. Like, okay, maybe not however much you want, but you will be able to build a stupid amount of things. You will be able to finish the power generation, you will be able to finish the buildables, like building resources, you will be able to finish the space elevator parts, you will be able to finish all of that by having this amount of power. Like, this is a stupid amount of power. And once again, we are upping what we are doing with certain things here. So we continue with our 20. We have our 20 nuclear power plant. We have our 32 200% overclocked coal generators. We still have our 60 biomass burners. And what we're doing here is we are adding plutonium and fixonium fuel rods. So plutonium, the plutonium fuel rods, the 1.9 plutonium fuel rods we made before, they can be run into 11.9 of the plutonium, like nuclear power plants running plutonium instead. And they would then need a stupid amount of water. So the coal uses 2,800, the nuclear power or uranium uses 4,800. Remember, that number should be 4,800. And then you have 2,856 for the plutonium, and then we have an additional almost 6. We have 5.95 for the fixonium fuel rods, using almost 1,500 water. And here's the thing. This one, like, just producing the parts to make this, like, in like just looking at what I've done to make it, it produces 14,875. As far as I can see, you are in a net negative producing that. We'll be looking at that a little later. So you'll actually be losing power to do this. But once you have started doing this, and you're getting 11.9 plutonium waste per minute, then you're kind of locked in. If you want to get rid of the nuclear waste, like you don't want any byproduct that you can't sink, because you can't sink nuclear waste or plutonium waste, then you have to do this. You have to make the fixonium fuel rod, because this is the fuel rod that has no waste afterwards. So when you burn this off, it's gone. For the other two, you have the step before. So step 1, uranium. Step 2, plutonium, and fixonium is step 3. And then we're also heading to 416.6666, 6 recurring fuel power plants, because once again, we're trying to complete. This is a stupid, like, you can do this, but it is a stupid amount of work to make the ionized fuel that we have here. But they make 260,000 power, so they will account for half of the power production in your entire world. And like, this is more or less like just to say, I have done it, I have built it. Like, there is no need for you to do this. You will be able to finish with just the rocket fuel power and the nuclear power plant at best. Like, maybe not even that. Like, you might be able to finish the game without touching anything nuclear and just do fuel. Like, and rocket fuel then. Like, not even the big boy, like, ionized fuel. Like, you can finish this without that. This is basically just what do you need to finish the game, and this is what you need to finish the game. And basically, 3,125. It's a 1-to-1 between the turbo or rocket fuel and the ionized fuel. And let's go over and check out the power generation building stuff for this. So if we go in here, don't be intimidated, please. So we make our turbo fuel, right? To burn off. I'm not even gonna look at it. We looked at that like 4 times now. And turbo fuel we make into rocket fuel, and we've seen this before. That this is like how that works. However, we also want ionized fuel. So let's go look at that. Ha. A little bit more of a process. First of all, you are going to need 1,562 SAM to make your reanimated SAM, and once again, this is fully overclocked, and this is summer slooped. And this is to reduce, first, the overclock is to reduce the number of machines, and then the slooping is to make sure that you use less summer sloops. For this, you need 6 summer sloops to sloop these, and that will produce the reanimated SAM that makes the dark matter residue that you will need to make the dark matter crystals, which we will then be sending in here to make power shards, the automated power shard production for the endgame level overclocking resources. And this, together with rocket fuel, becomes ionized fuel. And we also get a more compacted coal, which once again we will then loop out. I'm also looping the byproduct from making the power shards, the dark matter residue, out to supplement and reduce this amount. You can see 2,343.75 dark matter residue goes out from the production of the power shards. Imagine how much SAM we would need otherwise. And remember, SAM is a rare resource. If we go over and check, there is only 10,000 SAM on the map total. And remember, you need a lot for your space elevator parts. You're gonna need some for your building parts, and you're gonna need a lot of it for, like, not just here, later down for the Fixonium fuel rods as well. You're gonna need even more SAM. So SAM is a rare resource that you will need a lot of. So be careful in how you set that up. But yeah, we're also making a ton of diamonds because the power shards also need diamonds. That's also very fun. The simplest one is the excited photonic matter, because that's just like a converter with the recipe. Excited photonic matter, like, it doesn't need more than that. But yeah, you need to make diamonds, and I have chosen to blend 2 different resources because look at the numbers. Almost 9,500 limestone and more than 4,500 coal to make the number of diamonds required to make the time crystals for this, because you need 390, almost 391 time crystals per minute to make the power shards required for this. For that reason, I split it up. So if I remove this, if I disconnect here, look at how the numbers show for the coal and limestone. Boom. And instead of using up 1/3 of the map's resources of limestone and 1/4 of the coal, I decided to blend it with some of the oil, adding in a little bit over 18, like went close to 2,000 oil, which, like, there's like 3 major oil fields on the map. It's the Blue Crater Lake, it's the Spire Coast up in the north, and on the western side of the map, you have the Golden Coast oil fields. You can use either, I think, like, if you do this right, I think the Spire Coast is the simplest one to make sure that you have enough oil for this. Like, so if you build this, build it somewhere close to, like, the Spire Coast, is what I would say. Like, specifically the diamond stuff. You also have most of the limestone in the Rocky Desert and around that area, so definitely make that an easy choice, right? Then when you are, like, done with running out of all of the quartz. There's 13,000 quartz on the map total, right? 3,000 of that needs to go in here and make your quartz, like quartz crystal, to also make this. This is stupid, right? If you want to build this, go right ahead. If you're masochistic enough to spend the time that it takes to round up all of the resources, if you have a good enough sense of accomplishment doing other things in the game that this makes sense to you, do it. Otherwise, I do not recommend doing it. But it will also guarantee that you're producing all the power you might ever need. You can also then build a fifth or sixth what's it called, alien power augmenter, to offset whatever you would get from the nuclear power, and just screw the nuclear power, right? Because building this setup with the turbo fuel, rocket fuel, ionized fuel is still way simpler than building the setup you need for the uranium, plutonium, and fixonium stuff. So basically, I've just set this up as a, hey, we are making some concrete and stuff out here, and I'm sending that in. Because if we go in here and we look, ha-ta-ta, the uranium fuel rod, that setup hasn't changed, right? I'm also sending some stuff out. There's some water recycling thing that I'm sending back in here to get rid of. You make that into wet concrete, get rid of the wet concrete to make sure that stuff doesn't back up. But then we... or this might have been the one we were looking at. Yeah. So I'm producing a lot of the resources here because we need them here, that I also need for making the plutonium stuff. Right? So when you build your uranium setup, plan your quantities and the machines and everything for later being able to do this, because this is what you need at a minimum to just sink your plutonium anyway, right? So that's something that I have very studiously accounted for here. And then let's go in and check fixonium. This is the stupid one. Once again, you need more SAM, and I have reduced that by once again overclocking to 250% and putting in summer slooped the thing, so you only need 3 for this. And then all of this setup, it's stupid numbers, right? It's completely I don't comprehend why anyone would go through and build all of this when the fuel generator setup is so much simpler and gives you a lot more power. Because this, if you look here, average net power over here is 12,397. The power production from this setup is 14,000, so your net positive is 2,000 megawatts. Just build another coal power plant and you get the same result. Why the hell would you build this? Is my essential reaction to having made this plan. I've never built this system myself, so the last step here. So yeah. And when it maxes out, it even goes above. It goes 10,000 over what you'll be getting net out from the system. Either way, to build this, if we go here, you can see, boop. If we're in here in phase 5, right? And this is a description or a instruction that I'm leaving here for you guys. To know the amount of raw resources you need to do this, I've made this on the left side. You can see input and unmade, as in the unmade raw resources. So some of these things are because the game stopped calculating, this, I can't get rid of that. But all of the rest of them, limestone, coal, how much water, crude oil, the water, I would double that, triple that, just to be safe, to be honest. But the crude oil required, the raw quartz, SAM required, nitrogen gas, sulfur, deuterium, copper, bauxite, iron, the uranium, leaves, wood, all of this is essentially the raw resources that you need to round up to build this entire system. And then, of course, you do have the number of machines, you have the like how to disperse them and everything. I also added in the end, if you want to, you can make alien power matrices to run into your alien power augmenters. When you do this, what happens is like you need to make 5 per minute to run a single alien power augmenter, right? So they are expensive as when it comes to the SAM. You could, if you were to like skip the fixonium, skip the plutonium, the uranium fuel rods, I would even skip the ionized fuel and just stay with the rocket fuel, and instead use those resources to like triple this or quadruple this, so that all 4 of your alien power augmenters can use that resource instead to get the bonus that they get from having these. So if we look at having one of these coming in, right, suddenly power bonus shoots to 60%. That's because now this power augmenter is having a 30% bonus instead of having a 10% bonus. So you triple the percentage, like the multiplication of your network's power generation. And here's the thing, if you manage to get to the point where you are doing that with all of these, right? So you are producing 20 of these per minute, and on top of that, you have 120% bonus. You have tripled your former bonus. So even if you did not have these, even if you did not have all of this, let's go like this. Keep that, boop, gone, right? And let's say that you are now, like, let's actually go back on that. Let's head on over here where we're in phase 4, where we are using the fuel that we would also stop with. So we're getting rid of this, right? And instead we are multiplying here. So this is the route we're taking instead. This is definitely something that is more practical and ultimately I think a lot simpler to build. So if you do this, you have your 20 production there, you have 120% bonus. You are now producing 435,000 megawatts with just these things producing power for you. That is a good bonus, in my opinion, and that is a lot easier to build this, right? Because nothing else is here, and this is a very simple thing, like how do you go about multiplying what you're doing? So this one needs to be multiplied by 4, which puts this, if I remember correctly, at a solid 18, right? So I'm going to 18 here, and the end here needs to be 8. And I look at the resources required for that. It would need about the same amount, and it would give you like the same amount of like whatever resources, power you wanted in the end. And it is about as complex as just the first step of your nuclear power in terms of like production chains that you need to set up. So in my opinion, a lot simpler, but if you're going to go for the I have built all different kinds of power that I can build, then I definitely recommend stay with just getting one of them up and running with the 4.5 here, boom, and then having this. Let me just load import file. I just need to get the the correct numbers up here again. So this is how you complete the game power generation style. I hope this one helped you. If it did, if you are happy with this, share it with your friends. Give me comments. Like, I want to hear if you have something that, like, thoughts on nuclear power, do you feel like nuclear power is something you must do to kind of finish the game, or is it something you can completely skip and still finish the game, feel like you finished the game? I want your opinions in the comments on anything that I've said in this video, and I want to hear questions, I want to hear ideas. How can we innovate on this? How can we, like, of course, there is the, like, Mystic's way, or like I'm Kibit's way, or whatever, where you collect and you max out the resources in the world has one purpose, and it is to make more power. And that is like one way that I've seen, and they can hit stupid numbers, like completely bonkers numbers. So depending on what you want to do, here this is. And once again, I will release all of this when we have gone through the final one, which is all of our build resources and raw processing for the build resources for phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And once again, before I forget, don't think I actually finished that before, saying that before. These are like, you have an option. Phase 1, you can build phase 1, and then you can rebuild and upgrade, so you have phase 2, or you can build phase 1 and phase 2 into different power factories. And then you can build phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, or upgrade from phase 2 to phase 3. I would say that this is the last one you can do that. Phase 3 and phase 4. So you can have a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And once you get here, and you build and phase 4. Phase 4 has to be upgraded to phase 5, because otherwise you will not have the raw resources in the world to be able to do both. Like, there's just not enough oil in the world to be able to do what you want to do. There's definitely not going to be enough sand, there's not going to be enough oil, and there's more than likely not going to be enough uranium. Well, uranium is going to be there, but there's going to be a lot of other things in the world, like the nitric gas. That might also be a little bit of a limiting factor. It depends on, no, 12,000 in the world. That should be fine. But especially the oil is probably going to run out, because you have to have that for other things too in the world, such as the space elevator parts production needs a lot of oil for their stuff, and so does the buildables. So for your own sanity, if you're going to do the whole build phase 1 and then build phase 2 and then build phase 3 and then build phase 4, but after phase 4 you upgrade phase 4 to phase 5, that works. You can do that if you want to. Now, that is all I have for you today. And look forward to the next video, because that comes with the release of the build resources, and like this entire file, like Satisfactory modeler file, so that people can come in here and take a look at it and potentially try to build after this plan if you want to. That's potentially a series that I would be up for doing if you guys want to see it. Tell me down in the comments, leave a like, leave a subscribe. If you want to support me, you can do that on Patreon from $1 a month, and that's also linked in the description. Have a good one, everyone, and I will see you guys in the next video or in the next stream. Have a great day. Bye!